Computer Programming for Kids. Step 2, Getting Your Feet Wet. As promised in Step 1, let's now take a look at the code that's behind changing what's on the screen in the Guess Your Age app. Note, at this point, or at any point from here on, you can choose to either follow along or play along. By play along, I mean writing the code I will show you in your own personal version of the app we will be discussing. If you feel ready to do that and want to, what you need to do is download and install Microsoft's Visual Studio Community Edition. It's free. You can get it here, and in the newsletter there's a link. If this link is stale, if it no longer works, Google Microsoft Visual Studio free download and look for the link, the search results that take you to Microsoft's site. Although we will explore other languages and technologies later, such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Java, you might find it odd, but Java and JavaScript have little or nothing in common, except for the name. The programming language we'll be using in Visual Studio is C#. Why? Because C# is a good, general, full-featured programming language that is relatively easy to learn. Note, by the way, C# is not pronounced C-pound or C-hash or C-hashtag, but C# as in the musical symbol. Of course, in musical terminology, D-flat is the same thing as C#, but C# sounds better than D-flat, to me anyway. Your mileage may vary. And the newsletter shows an image of some musical notation with the C# among the notes circled. So first, I'll show you some of the code behind the screens that were shown in the previous step in our journey, Step 1. You may remember that the code you write is how you talk to the computer to tell it what to do. This will all look very strange to you at first. It will look like a foreign language, a very funky foreign language, and so it is, more or less. But don't worry, you don't have to learn it all at once. You'll just learn what you need to know a little at a time. So if this looks intimidating to you, don't worry about it. It will all be explained in due time as we go along. This is the code that is run when either of two events happens. The app starts up or the user clicks the Next button. And what follows is a code snippet, a pretty long code snippet that obviously you can see if you get the newsletter. Note, and this refers to something that's in the code block, you will see the phrases elided for brevity, or the rest is left as an exercise for the reader, often in programming books and tutorials. The former simply means left out to save space. And the latter means we trust you to figure the rest out for yourself. Actually, sometimes what the latter really means is, I was too lazy to write it myself, you do it. But again, don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging and expect too much of you too soon. We will take this slow and steady and not say the rest is left as an exercise for the reader for quite a while yet, if ever. Another word before we continue. Do you see the equals sign and the double equals signs in the code above? The single equals sign means is now or becomes. Some programmers say gets or is assigned. And the double equals sign means is equal to or is the same as. So the first if statement above and also shown below, and the code snippet is shown again here, part of it, means in plain English, if the value of the sequence variable is equal to 1, then do the following. Make the text of group box 1 selector Roger. Make the text of radio button 1 Ebert. Make the text of radio button 2 Federer. Make the text of radio button 3 Maris. Okay, brace yourself for what comes next. Ready? The left curly brace can be read as begin, and the right curly brace can be read as end. In fact, that's what they are in some programming languages, such as Visual Basic. It actually says begin, and then has code, and then says end. If the value of the sequence variable is equal to 1, everything within the curly braces will run. No more and no less. Now we will go over the basic logic of the code, which is the if, else, if portion of it. If, then, else logic, as it is called, is something you will use in almost all programming you do. In plain English, it is equivalent to saying, if this happens, do this. Otherwise, if that happens, do that. As we just saw above, if sequence is 1, then do all the stuff that follows within the curly braces. As a reminder of what we're going to be dealing with for a while, this is what the app looks like when it starts up. And then in the newsletter, a screenshot is shown of what you see when you first start the app, a form with the question and a series of radio buttons that you can select one of them to answer the question. If the user selects the Maris value, the form then looks like the screenshot below. After making a selection, clicking one of the 3 radio buttons, the user can select the next button, which is circled in the screenshot, to bring up the next set of items. As expected, when the user clicks the next button, the screen changes again, with different text for the label and different items in the set of radio buttons. The reason why this happens is because when the user selects the next button or clicks the next button, the code triggered by that event, the button being clicked, runs. That code updates the value of the variable named sequence, and the part of the if-else block of code that runs is the section where the value of sequence is 2. This is because the value of sequence had been 1, and the line of code sequence plus plus increases it by 1, from 1 to 2. And then the code snippet is shown below with key parts of what runs in this instance. In plain English, the code above is saying increase the value of sequence by 1. If it is 1, make it 2. If it is 2, make it 3, etc. Now that the value of sequence is 2, the else if sequence equals 2 block of code will run. And so the group box's text now reads select a Bruce, and the radio button text values are respectively Herbelin Earl, if that's the right pronunciation. I don't know who that is actually. Lee and Springsteen. Note, when you see ellipsis dots, that is 3 periods with spaces between them, as you do between sequence plus plus and else if in the code snippet above, this means something has been left out, or there is something more that is not being shown. In the case of code snippets, or bits of code, it means some of the code is not being shown. The unseen code is not secret. It's not being shown for now because it is not what is being focused on at present. It has been elided from our example. Each time the next button is clicked, the value of the sequence variable is increased by 1. So the first time you click the button, the variable of sequence is changed from 1 to 2, and the code above runs. Each subsequent click of the next button runs the next section of code. Next time, the code where sequence is 3 runs. The time after that, the code where sequence is 4 runs, etc. In the next step on our journey, we will show you just exactly what code to write. You can either follow along by reading or play along by actually copying that code right into Visual Studio or typing it in yourself if you prefer to do that.